is for trauma. So that's what we have going on. And so I wanted to share that with you guys. Give me just a second. I am in a presentation mode and I want to be able to actually see what I'm doing with you guys. So it's kind of hard if I think, okay. All right. Hello, Miss Nelson. Hello, Miss Sarah is watching and waving. All right. Awesome sauce. Okay. So I am going to jump on. Miss Sarah is she is Sarah Scott. She's my assistant. She is my sister and colleague at True Understanding Ministries and Balanced Living Counseling Services. So Sarah, I'm going to lean on you to respond, at least through typing any responses that you see on the chat or bringing them up so that I can talk about them. So that's what we're going to be trying to do. Hopefully I can pay attention because I'm on a different platform. I'm on my phone, so it's a little different. Hopefully I'll see any questions that pop up. Okay. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I really want to make sure that I'm able to share all the information as needed. Hi, guys. Hi, Miss Angela. I see you. I see you. All right. Now, the E stands for emotional distress. Emotional distress. I know I'm not the only one that has had that wonderful opportunity of having emotional distress. I'm being facetious. It's not wonderful at all, is it? No, it is not. So emotional distress. What does that look like? Well, emotional distress can look like anxiety. It can look like depression, grief and loss. Emotional distress, even in relationships. We talked about relationships yesterday. In counseling, especially in marriage counseling, when we're describing the level of problems or communication, relationship discord that a couple has, we call it distress. We may call it mild distress, moderate distress, or highly distressed couple, meaning they are on the verge, if not like this close to being away from each other and maybe ending in divorce. Highly distressed couple. And so emotional distress affects all aspects of our lives and our bodies. And that's what I want to talk about today. And it's something that's very interesting that we need to look at. Okay, so emotional distress. Well, let me go into the other one. The other one is the A, affect awareness. I'm going to get into what that means. And then the T is trauma. Emotional distress. It affects us, or stress and anxiety affects us emotionally and our feelings. Like I just mentioned, it affects us mentally in our cognitive ability to focus, to think, or it's running our thoughts. We're having those intrusive or tangential thoughts that are just constantly going. We can't sleep at night because we have worries and thoughts running through our brains, right? Just can't shut it off. Physically, emotional distress can affect your physical body. I talked about, I think, the first and second day about how holding on to emotions and not processing those emotions can cause us a lot of if you hold on to it and you don't process it, you don't let it out, you don't express it, it can cause a lot of toxic chemicals in your body. Well, if positive chemicals are like serotonin, are being able to be developed, those negative toxic emotions can also, or toxic chemicals rather, can also be affected by our emotions. There's a lot of research that I don't have time because I'm doing a little quick little niblet of information, so I can't get all into the I guess biochemical jargon, but it does affect us physically and medically. But behaviorally, what we do, emotional distress can affect what we do and how we do it. Okay, I'm gonna get into that in a few seconds. So, all right, so the emotionally, sometimes when we have gone through something, I'm gonna go with the trauma, the T. So we're talking about the trauma of it all. How does trauma affect us? A famous trauma specialist, he has a quote that I want to read. He says, self-regulation depends on having a friendly relationship with our body. Without it, you have to rely on external regulation. So when we talk about behaviors, what are some of those external regulations that we're trying to use to regulate our emotions, to affect some type of change or stabilization in our body, in our minds, in our emotions? Well, we use medication. It can be psychotropic medications, like something for an antidepressant, something for anti-anxiety meds, something of that nature. But there are some things that we use that are not necessarily prescribed. It can be alcohol. You want the glass of wine, but you got to have it every day. Or you got to have that beer or two every day, or a 6-pack on the weekend, or something harder. That could be a problem, right? If it's a habit, you just got to have it. For us coffee drinkers, we just got to have that mood stabilizer. And we may rely a little bit too much on it. That can be something. Food. So those are also chemicals. But what are some other things? Some type of compulsions like gambling. What do we call it? Retail therapy. We're going to go shopping. It makes us feel good. So there's a lot of different things that we use. Yeah, caffeine, right? That we maybe rely a little bit more on than we maybe should, because we're trying to balance or trying to, counteract some interactions, some problems that we're feeling in our bodies and our mind. And that's what we use. So those are the behavioral responses that I was talking about. Some people go a little further. It may be relationships with others. I don't know how many kiddos may be looking at this, but relationship with others that are high risk. So there's various things that we can be doing that may or may not be positive. So we're going to look into, okay, how can we, obviously we do need those things. We do need to regulate rather our behaviors and regulate what we're going through in our physical bodies. We just got to find some better, more constructive, more healthy ways to do it. So that's what we're going to talk about real quick. All right. So what are some of the ways that we feel stress? There's 4 types of stress. So I'm giving y'all some education before I get into some other things. Residual from past traumatic events that continue to affect us now, whether that's childhood trauma, different types of childhood trauma in your family, maybe something that happened at school, being bullied, something that happened as a young adult. It can be various different residual traumas that happened that's affecting you now. So yes, can a child have residual? Yes. They may be young, but if it's something that happened a little while ago and it's still affecting them presently, that's residual. Situational, immediate threats or challenges that demands attention right now. That can provide stress. Sometimes it's like, family things that you got to get done, responsibilities, bills, kids got things that they got to have done. They have a project that has to get done, or a game. You have work responsibility and duties, and some of those things you just have to get done. And there is such thing as good stress, because that adrenaline gets flowing and gives you the energy you need to get the task done. So there is such thing as good stress. It's just when we go too far, when it affects our daily lives too much, then we know that that's not a healthy thing, right? It can get out of balance. Okay, the next one, chronic. Enduring situations such as illness, strained personal relationships, or difficult work situations. Those chronic stressors that are continuing, never ending, don't see an end in sight. That's a problem. Anticipatory, caused by concern over a future event. Now, remember I talked about grief. There's such a thing as, you can grieve in so many different ways. You grieve anticipatory grief. You're grieving before it happens. Like if someone is terminally ill, you know that they're going through cancer or end stage renal failure or late stage Alzheimer's, you name it, or just old age. And my parents are getting up there, or my loved one is getting up there, and part of living is death, is dying. And as much as we know that, it's still difficult to say goodbye to a loved one. That's our heart, that's our family, a close friend, that's your family, that's someone you love. So you have that anticipatory grief, and then the actual grief happens and you grieve all over again. It's the same thing when you're going through a loss of a job, not the same, but it's a similar type of loss. You had a job. Maybe it was a job you were on for a long time. A lot of us lost jobs during COVID and never got those back and had to change jobs. So that could be a grief and loss type of situation. End of a relationship can be something where you're grieving. You probably say, I know that it may have been the right thing or it needed to happen, but you grieve it. That happens sometimes. So I just want you to just keep that in mind, that we go to different types of emotional distress. So that's what that E is for. What does that look like for a kiddo? For children, we think about ourselves as adults, but what about our children? Children and teens, they experience the trauma or anxiety and emotional stress somewhat as much as we do. It's similar to what we do as actually. But there are times where those symptoms can be a little different, especially for kids that are under 6, under 10, under 6, especially the little ones. So some of the things that can happen: bedwetting, they're wet in the bed after having learned to use the toilet. They may be potty trained, but for some reason, all of a sudden, they're bedwetting. Forgetting how to or being unable to talk for someone under 6, right? Or they just, they just kind of tapped out. They're there, they're going through the motions. They may even play, but literally having no sound, no dialogue. Acting out the scary event during playtime. That's some kind of way to cope, or not cope, but that's their way of dealing with it, is to get it out. Being unusually clingy with a parent or another adult. They just always want to be around you, and they just want you there, and they want to play with you. They don't want to play with anybody else, and you're like, what in the world is going on? They're not little adults. Children can't say, well, you know what? Sit down, let me tell you. I'm so sad that grandpa had passed on, and I know he needed to. No, they're babies. They don't know how to do all of that. Shoot, half of us adults don't know how to sit down and just communicate. I can't tell you how many times I have to encourage families, don't go behind closed doors to your separate rooms and grieve. Grieve together. It's okay. You think I'm being strong for them. You need to be strong together. You need to cry and be vulnerable together, to talk about that loved one, to talk about how you miss them, to talk about what you miss about them, what you, or whatever, you need to talk to each other, grieve together. You help each other when you grieve together. You help heal each other when you grieve together. It's so important to help you through that process. So don't do it alone. So that means including your kiddos. And sometimes you say, well, I asked them and they won't tell me. Well, sometimes just tell them how you're feeling. I know you think I got to be strong for them, but sometimes they need to know that it's okay. I'm hurting too. And it's okay for us to hurt. We can talk about it. And you don't have to be strong for me. I don't have to be strong for you. We can be strong for each other. We're going to be strong by sharing and caring and celebrating and talking about how much we miss Papa or how much we miss Mama. It's okay. Giving that child and yourself permission to grieve is so important. You're not going to get through that process if you just bottle it up and hold on. Some older children and teens are more likely to show, like I said, symptoms similar to us, but sometimes they might want revenge, get back at that person. Sometimes that's what we want. Isn't that part of the stages of grief and loss? Anger, right? We just really angry and upset. And so that's kind of sometimes a part of the grief and loss process. And of course, we've talked about that the stages of grief are like denial or shock, that depression, anger, bargaining, and then acceptance. But it's not that linear. You go up and down, back and forth. So don't think something's wrong with you if you're not going in a straight line. You will not. And everybody agrees at their own rate in their own time. Don't let anybody rush you, and don't let anyone tell you that something's wrong with you, or you're not believing God, or whatever they say, because you're grieving, because you hurt. You're supposed to hurt. That's the person that you love. It is okay. It is okay to grieve. It is the right thing to do. When you allow yourself to grieve, ironically enough, you will get through that pain, not over it, not over the loved one. You just get through. You get to go through the pain to get to the other side of being able, yes, to accept that they're gone in a certain extent, but also being able to hold on to the love of that person. Being able to hold on to their memory, hold on to their love, and being able to hopefully let go of some of the pain. So it's a process. And yes, counseling can help you through that process. All right. One thing I wanted to share. Let me see what we got. Good timing. Oh, I've been talking a lot. I'm trying to do just 30 minutes, so we got 9 minutes left. If you got a question, you guys put it down in the chat, and I'll answer it. But one of the things I wanted to talk about when we talk about, I didn't go into trauma. I talked about the emotional stress. Let me tell you a little bit about the affect. In psychotherapy, we have a terminology. We say affect, AFFECT, affect. It looks like affect change, like affect, a touch of feelings, emotional effects, feeling overwhelmed or devastated, damaged effect, but not how this affected me. Affect is a psychological term for an observable expression of emotion that you have on your face. A lot of times when I do groups, I do emotional charades, and I do have a group that I have. It's called Breathe. I have one Breathe for women, one Breathe for teens, and one Breathe for kids, children that are 8 to 12. So I have those going on. So beware, women folk. We're going to be doing our emotional charades. But, some of the fun things is allowing yourself to be aware, to pay attention to what's going on with you emotionally, what's going on with people around you emotionally, based on their facial expressions, their affect, right? Hand gestures, the tone of voice. I can be loud and I can be or I can be calm and slow and methodical. It's certain things. I can have laughter, I can have tears, paying attention to what's going on, affect, those nonverbals, as well as what we hear verbally going on. It's important. So I can show excitement, or I can show that I'm confused, or I can show that I'm very depressed. Being able to be aware of what's going on with you is important. Sometimes we get very overwhelmed and stressed just because I don't know what's going on with me. Allow yourself to feel. A lot of times I'm in a counseling session and I ask someone how you feel, and they'll tell me what they thought or what they're thinking or what they're doing, because they're trying to avoid feeling. It's not a healthy thing to avoid your feelings. If you need a good example, a little fun way to kind of embrace your feelings, I love, what is it, the little cartoon, I think Pixel did, Inside Out. Because God made all these emotions in our body, God made them. None of them are wrong. It's okay to feel depressed sometimes. Sometimes your body it gives you what you need sometimes to relax. If you've been overwhelmed and you've been working hard, or if you're grieving the loss of someone, one of the best things to help your body heal, to recover from trauma, is sleep. When you're depressed, ironically enough, one of the things you want to do when you're depressed is sleep. So sometimes your body is giving you what you need, even though you're depressed and you don't have the energy and you're lethargic and things that you wanted to do, you don't have an interest in doing anymore. And even you feel hopeless. No, it's not great to be depressed, but sometimes just observing and realizing, right now, I'm just depressed right now. Today, I'm kind of depressed. Today, I'm kind of down. And allow yourself to be with that for a little while. to say, okay, I'm depressed today. That's what's going on. And then don't run from it. Try to figure out what's going on. Okay, what happened yesterday, the day before, this week? Allow yourself a moment to slow down and be aware of yourself and aware of your situation in life and figure out what is going on. It is okay. It's a healthy thing to do. Okay, so trauma. I wanted to mention that really quickly. I lunch breathe about because of George Floyd, because of the trauma that we were going through in seeing the death of George Floyd. That was painful. Over 8 minutes of seeing someone basically be lynched, a modern day lynching, and it was devastating. I'm going to post again the video. I'm doing a PowerPoint right now while I'm doing this video, so I'm going to hopefully be able to give that to you. But there's Dietrich Haddon did a song, I think it was I Can't Breathe, and it's on YouTube. And it was just a powerful song, and it helped me to say I need to do something. I need to help in the way that I can. You know, you had people out there protesting, risking their lives with COVID, protesting because it was something worth having a voice over it. It was a traumatic experience. And so a lot of times we don't realize that by witnessing a traumatic experience, not just experiencing it yourself, but witnessing a life-threatening event can be traumatic. How do you know if you're going through trauma? So this is how you know. If you're experiencing new or severe or persistent symptoms of this, you may have PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. We don't call it that unless it's after 30 days. Before then, when you're witnessing some traumatic event like, oh my gosh, the recent shootings, the recent shooting in Tulsa, the recent shooting in Texas, the recent shooting with the at the churches and at the stores, it's just in the schools, it's been devastating. That's traumatic. So textbook, we say 30 days or less. If you're having these symptoms I'm about to say, then you're dealing with acute stress disorder. If you're still experiencing these same symptoms after 30 days, it's PTSD, or it can be PTSD. But at the very least, you could say I'm experiencing racial trauma or a traumatic response. Okay, so how do you know if you're experiencing that traumatic response? If you're reliving, that's the first one, reliving through flashbacks, hallucinations, or nightmares of the incident, then that's one, reliving. The second one, avoiding. You're trying to avoid places, trying to avoid the stores, avoid, schools, avoid things that remind you, memories that remind you of the trauma. I can't, I don't want to go to the school. I don't want to deal with police. I don't want to go to the store. You're avoiding. That's one thing. 3, excessive arousal. You have increased alertness, hyper aware, anger, fits of rage. You're irritable. You have just hatred for people. Difficulty sleeping or concentrating. Those excessive arousals, basically, what is that? Like those physiological responses that I talked about earlier, right? Mental and emotional responses. You can't sleep at night. You're having those racing thoughts, and you can't stop you can't turn off those thoughts that's going. Those are some of those excessive arousals that you're dealing with. And then you have those intrusive, negative, or distressing thoughts or feelings, such as guilt or survival's guilt. Like, that happens, especially those that are right there and it happened to them. Why did I live and they didn't? So that type of survivor's guilt. And then just having a hard time having that affect, that emotional response, right? You're just kind of void, feel dead, feel just dissociate from it. Just kind of feel like you're not there. You're just kind of numb. So that happens. And that's when I'm dealing with this trauma. The same thing, what we did after George Floyd, talked about it as a family. Please talk to your kids, talk to each other about how you're feeling and what's going on. It's a real thing. We have been, as African Americans, dealing with trauma for too many years. For too many years of being on in this, not only in the United States, but on this earth, people of color have had to deal with trauma. But people of various ethnicities, because somebody thinks that they're better than, or they're being, I don't know, undeserving. People have their own pathologies and reasons why they do what they do. I'm not covering that today, but the bottom line of it is, it's traumatic. It is trauma, and we have been told like we're supposed to just shake it off and just not act like we're going through racial trauma. It is racial trauma. That is why I started Breathe, because I was listening to Dietrich Haddon's song, and I was thinking to myself, because I am a Christian and that's my faith and my belief, and I was like, Lord, I can't keep making that confession that I can't breathe. And in the song, he started off talking about breathing, not being able to breathe, but at the end of the song, he was saying, he was calling out the different names of the states, Minneapolis, breathe. And first I was like, he left out Mississippi, but then he said from Alabama to Louisiana. I said, okay, praise God, we're in there. We're Mississippi, we're in there. Breathe. And so that's what I was just really inspired, that yes, we will breathe. We will breathe. We must breathe. We will breathe. And making that positive confession, because that's what was birthed out of that trauma of George Floyd, is speaking out and saying, I can't breathe, but saying also that, darn it, we deserve to be allowed to breathe. The Black Lives Matter, we matter. And so sometimes anger is used for a reason. That's why I said Inside Out is a cute little cartoon, but with such strong truths. We deserve to breathe. And sometimes anger has a place. It has a place. The Bible says, be angry and sin not. It didn't say don't be angry. It said be angry and sin not. Okay, so I can be angry. What do I do with that anger? Well, what I'm doing is launching Breathe. What I'm doing is being here for my family, for people that are going through this and needing someone. So that's what I'm doing with my anger. And so I hope that something that I have said today is going to help you, because it is so important that you learn to breathe. And I'm going to tell you some more later, because I'm out of time, but I wanted to say, when you know that you're going through some things in your body, when you know that you're going through some things mentally and emotionally, when you're feeling overwhelmed, please don't forget to breathe. Don't forget to do what I taught you in the first one. If nothing else, you sit back, you do your deep breathing. You breathe in through your nose, you hold, and you breathe out like you're breathing through a straw. I want you to take that time and do some self-affirmations. I want you to take time and pray. Devotion is important. Our spiritual health is important. We're going to get into it more. But I want you to remember EAT, right? Be aware of your emotional distress, that your affect awareness, and be aware of the trauma that you may be going through, or people in your family or your loved ones around you, and know that you can get through it. The awareness is the first thing. And the next thing is to do something about that trauma. Allow yourself to heal. Write, journal. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into it. But I never like to leave anybody and say, oh, yeah, I got all that this is all what I'm going through. Now, what do? I can't leave you like that. Can't leave you and just say, okay, bye, see you next time. No, I can't do it. So I want to tell you, before we talk to each other again tomorrow and the next day, I want you to just do something. And if nothing else, you can do breathing. You can do your deep breathing. You can do some devotional. You can do your cast your cares, right? Breathing in all of those concerns and worries, and palms down, casting them on him and releasing it. You breathe it in, all the worries, concerns, fears, anxiety. Let it pool up in your hand, and then palms down, cast that care on him, because he cares for you. Just give it to Jesus. Give it to God. Just release it, or let it go. Let it out of your body. Okay. And until tomorrow, I want you to go out and breathe. And I'll see you tomorrow at 7. Every night this week, every night this month at 7 p.m. I hope you take part of this 30-day Breathe Mental Health Challenge. I want you to invite people, share the link, and hopefully more people will join this public free group. And I want you to join. Please feel free to go to www.trueunderstandingministries.org or www.balancelivingcounseling.org and hit that PayPal to donate any amount. At the end of next week, I'll be giving you, or probably getting it to you on Sunday. Anyone who sends an amount, I'm just going to give you kind of a printout of some of the things that you can do, a little quick little devotional, little journal that you can write in, and you have some sheets. So by all means, please donate. True Understanding Ministries is the underwriter of Balanced Living Counseling Services. We are a nonprofit, and we are doing this also as a fundraiser to be able to help with the cost of providing mental health to people in Mississippi. And now I'm licensed in Alaska as well, but definitely here in the state of Mississippi. And so I look forward to talking to you soon. I will see you tomorrow. Y'all have a blessed night and go out and breathe.